Hello, everybody. Hello. This is my first live stream in 2 years, something like that. And I didn't do too many of them originally. So I am using Streamlabs OBS, and there's a lot of stuff to keep my mind on here. So, so hopefully it's working fine. Anyway, it is my first live stream in a while, and today we're going to be talking about how hiring is broken, right? You guys are hopefully here to hear about that. There is a chat. Hopefully somebody is here, and you can comment, and I can see those. And we're going to talk about job search hell and how to overcome it. But this is pretty loose because it's my first live stream for a while. And this is on my second channel. I'm streaming to you on The Company's Expert 2, which is a channel that not many people know about. And this is still experimental. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put this video up on my main channel later when it's no longer a live stream and it's a video. But we're going to cover several things today. And there's mainly hiring related, HR related, business related. First, I want to say that since I'm a complete noob, I'm going to talk about some stuff and I'm going to see the comments. And if you have a question, type it in the comments. If you give me a super chat, I will definitely, I guarantee you a proper response to your question. I've never ever had a super chat. I've never seen a super chat before or a super sticker. But if I get one of those, I will make sure that I answer that, whatever that is. And oh, I see. I can see the number of users, but I can't see their names. So if you type in a comment, I'll be able to see your name and do a shout out. But all the intro stuff. What is it that everybody says when they start a live stream? They say, subscribe to my channel, like, share, blah, blah, blah. Do you ever hate that? I mean, everybody says that. You know, if you are on YouTube, like often, you know, like every day or something, and in most videos that you watch, that's what people start off with. That's what people end with. It's just really annoying. It's like, yes, we know how YouTube works. You don't have to say that. And I did do that on a lot of my earlier videos because you start off by imitating other people, but I try not to do that anymore. Also, some of the lesser known stuff that I have is I have a Patreon. If you're into that kind of thing, some people are just into Patreon. So I have a Patreon. And if you're not, that's fine. If you want more stuff from me, you can join this channel as a member. And I do one extra video every week and you see that video. Okay. Well, let's get into it here. Hiring is broken. Now, this is something I've talked about. I talk about quite a lot on my regular channel. And, you know, a lot of you guys, based on your comments that you leave in on my main videos, you kind of agree with this. And, you know, it comes back to the basic topic of HR. HR, in a lot of ways in the world of business, HR is like the bass guitar in a band. It's, what do they say? It's like the bass guitar. It's the easiest instrument to learn, but the hardest to master. That's HR. Any fool can do it. Okay. And many fools do it. And a lot of you guys have encountered a lot of these people. But only a very few are actually any good at it. That's been my experience. That's been my experience firsthand in being a job seeker. That's been my experience being in the business, sort of at a manager level. That's been my experience hearing other people's experience. You know, so I'm pretty convinced that opinion is based on reality. A lot of people do a terrible job at HR. And if you look at all the metrics over the years, the business metrics, you know, of things like retention, you know, how long people stay at their jobs and stuff like that, how they perform, the metrics aren't going the right way. They're going the wrong way for the most part. And that kind of just proves it. That just proves that hiring decisions are usually wrong. They're wrong in large organizations. They're wrong in some smaller companies too. But a big part of that, as you guys know, is what I talk about on my channel, which is the sort of recruitment and selection phase. And especially from the point of view of the candidate, I don't think that there's too many people out there giving the sort of candidate's perspective. There's a lot of recruiters out there giving their side of the story, or at least what they want you to think is their side of the story. And I'm not going to slag off on them as a group. I mean, there are some good people there, but there's a lot of bad ones. And this reflects everybody's experiences. When you go out in the world, you try to get a job. And a lot of the recruiters are not very good. I'll just say it. They're not good. It's it's really interesting. Reading some of the comments that you guys have sent in on a lot of my videos is very similar to experiences I've had and experiences I know other people have had. And they all seem to come down to the same thing. If I had to characterize it in a word, I think the biggest problem, why hiring is broken, is because a lot of recruiters, they, apart from just not being very competent, in my opinion, certainly the ones I've dealt with, a lot of them are not very competent. On top of that, the big issue is that they just don't have a lot of self-awareness. There's a syndrome that you get when you work in a company and you work in one place for many years, and that is that you seem to think that everyone else in the world does something very similar to what you do, because this is the only thing you know. So you assume, surely, everyone else does it exactly the same way that we do, right? And I find that a lot of HR people kind of fall into that category. Hence, the really strange and cliched job interview questions. Let's start off with that. I didn't have a master plan. Just so you know, by the way, I didn't have a master plan of what to talk about on this live stream. I don't have a lot of notes. I don't know how you do this normally, but I'm just going to go. And I haven't gotten any comments yet, so hopefully that doesn't mean that there's something bad. Type a comment in the chat. If you're watching this, there should be a chat. My screen just blanked. That's not usually a good thing. Well, anyway, so getting back to it, one of the problems, one of the areas that I talked about is job interview questions, how to answer job interview questions. And the big problem is that, and this has always been the case as far as I know, is that there's certain canned job interview questions, things like tell me about yourself, where do you see yourself in 5 years, that people have been asking for like 50 years, 70 years, like as far back as I've been able to detect. Dating back to when they used to call the HR department the personnel department, they ask these questions, and then it's like, I'm somebody that's very literal. I'm not super intuitive. Okay. I know a lot of people out there. There's different personality types. Some people are intuitive. That's cool. And if you are intuitive, all the more power to you. But I know that there's a lot of more technical people out in the world, kind of like me. We're much more literal. If you mean something, say that thing. Don't say some weird other thing that, I meant to pick up from context clues what you're actually wanting to know, right? And that basically describes a lot of canned, cliche job interview questions, like tell me about yourself. When I first got on YouTube, like years ago, one of the things I kind of came across was people that had done channels that tell you how to answer job interview questions. And it's funny, they'll do an answer to like, tell me about yourself. And what the words that come out of their mouth are tell me about yourself. And then when they're explaining it in a YouTube video, they say, well, the best answer is to tell the recruiter about this, because that's what they really want to know. And my reaction was like, well, look, if that's what you really want to know, why don't you say that? Because, not everyone is a mind reader. These people seem to think that everyone can just read their mind, that when you say, tell me about yourself, people will somehow realize that you're asking about what your ambitions are. Because and recruiters have told me that. They've said a bad answer to tell me about yourself. I disqualified this candidate because they had no ambition. And I said, well, how do you know that? And they said, well, I asked in the interview. And I said, okay, well, what did you say? And they said, well, I said, tell me about yourself. And they didn't talk about any kind of ambition whatsoever. Now, the first thought in my mind, and you've got to put a bit of a filter on yourself in a business environment, but what was going through my head was like, well, how is a technical person supposed to decipher that when you say, tell me about yourself, what you're asking is, tell me about your ambition? I mean, you think that's obvious, but a regular person doesn't make that connection. Okay? And you're turning away what could be star employees with stupid crap like that. Pardon my French. It's just ridiculous. And this is the kind of stuff that, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it was there, but it wasn't as predominant as it is now. And you would think that something like how to do a job interview might have actually progressed in 10 or 20 years. It hasn't. It hasn't become more effective at assessing a person. In fact, I would argue that my personal opinion is that it's gotten worse. I don't have data to back that up. That's just my opinion. But what I can tell you is that it's not getting any better, and that's backed up by data. Okay, if you look at a lot of HR metrics, like I said, things like retention, things like performance, things like, manpower spent on harassment claims and other issues, insubordination, it hasn't gotten better. Okay? That's a big problem. That's a problem with this stuff. Well, this is my first attempt at doing this, and I've got that little number at the top of the screen. That's supposed to be the amount of, what do you call it? Watchers, viewers, current viewers. So that's gone up, and it's kind of gone back to zero a couple of times. And it's gone up again, back to zero. So I don't know if that's a technical issue or it's that nobody's talking in the chat, because I haven't got a single chat yet. At least I can't see it. Hopefully that's not a technical problem. But yeah. Now, I had received an email that I wanted to share with you guys. Oh, good. It says I'm live. That's what it says over email. So I'm sure that's really current. Now, this is from Sharakal City, if City is watching. And City sent me an email. He says, in anticipation of this live chat, he sent me 2 questions. He says, please describe your YouTube. You like my phone? You like my phone? It's ancient. Please describe your YouTube journey from 2018 to 2022 with 300,000 subscribers and 15 million views. What experiences have you gained over the last 4 years? Have you personally changed in any way by giving education, knowledge, or advice to others? Have I changed in any way? No, not really. Thanks for the question, by the way, City, but no, I haven't changed. I've always kind of done this. For several years, I've kind of been teaching on the side. So teaching is kind of, where you educate people. And I feel this is an extension of that. At least my regular videos are. I don't know what this is, but it's kind of an extension of that. And also, if you're in business, if you're a manager, and in my opinion, if you're a successful manager, or you're an executive, you're a manager or managers, a component of that is to evangelize kind of your thinking and your plan so that everybody in your group or your team, they understand what you're doing and why. They understand the reasoning behind it, and they understand what the plan is, and hopefully they buy into it. Now they understand what the reason is why they're being asked to do certain things. They embrace it more, and their performance goes up. So, that's what I've always felt is a key component of being an effective manager, is being able to communicate that. Sure, it takes extra time. That's a lot of the reason why people don't do this, as a matter of course. But the more people understand, the more people buy into something. And the more they buy into it, the more engaged they are and the better their performance is. So I've always just kind of done this. I'm sort of an introvert that likes to talk to people. Likes to talk to people in as much as I get to explain my thinking. And I know I'm not the only one out there. An introvert that likes to talk about what their opinions and ideas are. I know that's many of you guys, actually. I get the impression, some people have told me that, and I get the impression from comments. But so the YouTube thing hasn't really changed, me or anything like that. I still don't think of myself as a YouTuber, which is weird. As opposed to what I did before, is where I'm working with people. Now I'm sort of all alone in a room by myself. It's like being an author. They say if you're an author and you write books, it's like the loneliest profession. Because you could be like a superstar writer. You could be like Stephen King or something, and you still work every day in a little room by yourself all day. So if you don't like solitude, don't be an author. And at least the type of YouTube channel that I have, you have to be okay with doing stuff by yourself. What experiences have you gained over the last 4 years? That's pretty much been my experience, just sort of working by myself for YouTube. I really do like the comments, though. You get a lot of weird comments. Earlier tonight, I got a comment. I had done a video a while back. Maybe you've seen it. It's called The Hidden Job Market. And I find that's a tough topic to put on YouTube. And if I had to guess, I would say it's because a lot of people on YouTube, the predominant demographics, people in their 20s, and a lot of people in their 20s seem to have a hard time believing that there's this thing called a hidden job market. And you get people like vehemently denying like everything I say in the video. Okay. I mean, every job I've got in the last 15 years or something has been in the hidden job market, but okay, if it doesn't exist. I guess those people, they don't like every time a family member gets their son hired or gets a friend hired, maybe they've never heard of that. That's the job in the hidden job market. That's something that isn't posted publicly. They say like, oh, I know that we're going to be hiring somebody. You want me to put your name in before they post it? That's a hidden job market. So yeah, a lot of people have a hard time sort of accepting. It's kind of interesting, but for the most part, the comments have been positive. The other question that Siddy asked in his email was, what's your personal opinion on having a YouTube channel as a serious side hustle and not just a hobby? Listen, this does, in my world, in my way of thinking, this ties in with the whole getting a job thing. Because some people, not everybody, but some people are in the position where they are contemplating doing a YouTube channel as their job. And if that's you, and I suspect that's kind of the situation that Siddy is in, so he's asking from personal interest. If you are in a situation where, you don't need money immediately, like you could still live for a little while. Maybe you've got a part-time job. Maybe you're doing contract stuff or, casual labor, or you have something. Maybe it's not full-time. Or maybe you do have a full-time job, but you do have some time on the side and the desire to do something on the side. Okay. If that's you and you're able to put like more than a year towards this to have it take off, you could put up to say 2 years into it before you need to replace your income. I've talked about sort of entrepreneurial stuff because that's what I've done. That's what I'm really passionate about. YouTube is probably the best entrepreneurial option for a lot of people because it's something that has no capital outlay, no startup cost, basically. Assuming you have either a computer or a phone, you don't have to pay anything to start up that business. You just start doing it. And it's free for everyone. So if that's City, if you're out there, if that's what you're wondering, yes, I think it's an option. But it's based on merit, capitalism, marketing. If you have to do something that's good, you have to do something that people want to see. Now, good is a very subjective term, but you have to do something that people want to see. And if you want to make money at it, then there's some further restrictions. There's certain things you can't do. But assuming that you're willing to work within that and you're prepared to put some time in the beginning to practice and get good at what you're doing, yes, definitely. It's a viable thing. I'd like to talk more about that stuff. I like business and entrepreneurial, but I know that kind of, like most of the people that watch my channel kind of turn off when I talk about that stuff. I know there's a small group of you guys that like that stuff. I'd really like to do more of it. So MA is here. Oh, MA said hello and then retracted it. That's what I saw. Well, hello, MA, and you can retract that too. So hopefully that answers City. Thank you for sending that email. Anyway, the comment, there was a comment that prompted this live stream, and that was on my main channel. A couple of weeks ago, I did a video called, what the hell was it called? It was about it was called What They Think of You, something like that, where I'm talking about in job interviews how, the way recruiters often make decisions about what candidates to reject and what to accept, who to accept. It's really not obvious. It's not explicitly stated. You might walk into a job interview thinking that it's all about my qualifications, it's all about my credentials, and more sort of technical matters like that, only to find that the reality a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times, is that they're going to make a decision about you based on not those technical things, but sort of superficial things like, how well you click with the interviewer, things like this. So I did a video on that. And look at that. City is here. Thank you. You're awesome. You are awesome too, City. Thank you. Anyway, so they have this other criteria of how they judge people. And it's so stupid. It really is. I'm coming from the perspective of a technical person that learned this a long time ago. And number one, the frustration in having to learn this was considerable. Number two, the fact that this is how the world works, and it's an injustice because it shouldn't be how the world works, but it is. I think a very youthful attitude is to sort of push back against it. And sort of like what do they say? The 5 steps of grief or whatever it is. It's like the first thing is denial, right? So you say, no, surely they don't do that. Well, they do. No, there isn't a hidden job market. Well, yes, there is. In fact, the hidden job market is a lot of people's solution if they're having problems getting hired through standard channels. Standard channels means, you look for a job that's publicly posted, usually in the form of a job ad. Then you respond to the job ad with the job application. You end up talking to a recruiter. You go through the standard hiring process that, is HR's official process, which varies depending on the organization that you're dealing with. And then they do background checks and all that, and then they give you a job offer and you get hired, right? I mean, that's standard channels, right? Now, if that process isn't working for you, if you're, getting a lot of interviews, but nobody ever hires you, or hello to Krishna Gupta. That's awesome. It's great to see you here. I like the little icons. If you're getting a lot of interviews, but nobody's hiring you, or you're having problems even getting interviews, like you're sending out lots and lots of applications, but you're not getting any interviews. Okay. So that standard hiring process is not working for you. The hidden job market is the solution a lot of times. Okay. Because it bypasses that process. You're getting hired by somebody who believes in you. Usually it's because they know you. Okay, that's the thing. They know you from before the process of trying to get a job, right? If the first time you meet someone is when they're like trying to get past you, you're the gatekeeper and they're trying to get past you. And the first time you meet someone is during that process, you can assume that pretty much almost anything they say or do could be fake, because they're just saying it, not because they're being genuine, but because they want to get your approval so that they can get the prize, right? If somebody says something to you and you know them from a time when you're not selling something, they're not having to get past you, you're much more inclined to believe them, right? I'm not a psychologist. I don't know if that principle has a name. I mean, other than trust, but that's the concept here. So a lot of recruiters are basically, they come into this process, very mistrusting of anything you say, right? Like if you went to a job interview and said like, it's great that you're looking for these 12 things because I have them. I'm fully qualified in all of them. And they say, oh, well, that's great. Well, based on that, here, we'd like to offer you the job. Usually they're not going to do that, right? They're going to assume that what you're saying is some kind of exaggeration or misrepresentation. They're going to want to verify it. At least in their minds, they're going to verify it. I take issue with their methods of verifying, things. Usually that involves some kind of conversation where if it flows out of you very freely, they assume that you're telling the truth. And if you stutter and you're hesitant, they assume that you're making it up. As we all know, that's completely false, right? There are some people that are just not great communicators. And the reason they're not great communicators is because they're technical geniuses. There's a lot of people out there. They tend to be the ones that innovate the world and invent the most useful things. They tend to be socially awkward and they tend to be have less than average interpersonal skills, right? But if you run them through the standard hiring channels, they will fail because their skills in personal interaction hold them back. They never get offered the job. People just assume they're a non-starter. They assume either they're lying or they would be a problem in the organization interacting with others. There's no rapport with the interviewer, therefore they must be a bad candidate. Things like this, And it's just so completely false, Now, just looking at my chat, I'm getting some chats here, so thank you, everybody. So MA says, hello, Bill. Your insights have been very helpful to me. I intended posting the full question and not necessarily retracting the hello. Cheers. Okay. Yeah, if you got a question, just go ahead. That's what I'm here for. Like I said, I don't have a plan. So this could turn into a train wreck, and you guys are having the pleasure of watching me completely bungle this whole thing. It's weird because when I was doing a lot of teaching, I can walk into a room and I might not have like a ton of rehearsal, but that doesn't really make me nervous. I can command the room. I can give a lesson, or I can at least be entertaining. I mean, not to totally flatter myself or anything, but that's not too much of a challenge for me. But this I find that I'm more nervous doing for some reason. I guess because I'm just unfamiliar with it. It's really weird. You feel like the eyes of the world are upon you. But yeah, you see, I wrote myself some notes, but I can barely read them. That's a sign of professionalism. I wrote them so small and so badly. So that's like 2 out of 2. I don't think I misspelled every word. That would be the third step if I ever make it that far. But yeah. But no, I mean, it's ridiculous. You guys probably know I have some pretty strong opinions on this based on, my YouTube channel, where I try to kind of tone it down a bit. But yeah, I just think that organizations, number one, their method of selecting people, I think, is broken. Number 2, their way of treating a lot of people and the internal communication is broken, And when you add those two together, you end up with pretty poor human resources. Your employees are not really equipped to be very efficient or very effective. You select basically the wrong people or people for the wrong reasons, and then you don't treat them right. You don't communicate with them properly. This kind of thing. Okay, so I got a question here. Over the past 6 months or so, I've worked on being likable and seeing your videos, and now I think it's sort of working. My colleagues now kind of miss me when I take leave and all. That's good. Yeah, it's so stupid, but it's true. Being likable is that alone. If you're going to do one thing that will further your career, it's just being likable. And this is not something that, comes down to your personality or, just who you are, your makeup. This is something that's learned. This is a technique. It's like learning how to give a speech, learning to be likable. It's a very technical process. If you're a technical type person and this stuff doesn't really come naturally to you, hello, this is something that you learn. It's a technique. Same with like how to have a conversation with people, something that a lot of recruiters are terrible at, and I will come back to that. So CD says, how to leverage this to get a promotion, pay rise is the next step, which I wanted to get your inputs. Yeah, that's interesting. So let me ask you a question. Let's pretend you're the boss, okay, of a group of employees, right? Now, let's pretend, and this is not really much of a pretense because this is how it works. Your organization makes a certain amount of money, okay? Your group makes a certain amount of money. You've got maybe 20 employees. Now, one of them comes to you and asks for a raise, right? If you pay them additional money, that's money that directly comes out of your paycheck, okay? Company makes X amount of money. Okay. And for want of, just to simplify this, it basically goes into your pocket. If you were the owner of the company, it would go into your pocket. If you're a manager that's responsible for running a department, you get usually the way it works is you get a budget, and that money, goes into your pocket. If you overspend, that's bad. If you accomplish the goals without overspending and you underspend, if you own the business, that money goes into your pocket. So let me ask you this. If you're the boss and one of your subordinates comes to you, a subordinate who's good, and says, I want a promotion, I want a raise, okay? I don't want any new duties. I just want a raise. I want more money. Now, what would make you say yes to that? Okay, if there's no threat of the employee leaving, okay, that would be one possible threat, is if you felt that employee is going to leave if you say no, that might make you think twice and consider giving them what they ask for, okay? Another reason might be if they become disgruntled and the quality of their work goes down, their performance goes down. That might be another one, right? But like Every environment is different. Every culture of every organization is different. Every individual boss is different. So my question to you would be, what, if you were in their position, what would you have to say for you to agree to give somebody a promotion? Okay. Now, if it's a promotion, that means more money, but more responsibilities, more duties. Your duties change. Either you move up in the hierarchy, or they tack on more duties, more work you have to do. Okay. So if you've proven to be really good at that stuff, that might be one thing that might persuade you. Okay. If you can make the company more money if you were in that role, that might be another thing. Okay. If the employee got a competing offer from a competitor and said, like, I've got this offer from a competitor, without disclosing all the details, can you match it? That might be another thing. So it's questions like that you need to ask yourself, City, in that situation. Okay. It's hard for me to be more specific without knowing a lot of the details. How to leverage this and get a promotion. Okay. MA says, a recruiter contacted me for an opening and provided a salary range for a job and still asked me for how much I would like for compensation. The process is at the early stage. Please help. Well, I kind of answered that in my video. I did a video about, what are your salary expectations? Bottom line is you don't disclose. You don't. Okay. So they gave you a salary range and it asked you how much you would like. You'd like as much as possible would be the answer, I guess. If it's at the early stage, listen, if it's at an early stage, like, okay, so this is early stage and they've given you a range, I would say minimum. I would say minimum depending on details. Now, listen, I did another video, okay, called How to Answer the Salary Question in a Job Application. Okay, that's a little bit different. The answer to this question is for you to watch that video because that's what's going on here. Okay, basically, the only reason they're asking you this question is not because they want to pay you that much and not because they're going to hold you to it. It's just as a filter to filter out candidates. So they ask this question to like all candidates, and a lot of them say, I want the maximum amount. And then they say, okay, well, those people are eliminated, right? So that's the reason they're asking this. Excuse me. Okay, so go watch that video, MA. That's a great question. A lot of people are struggling with that, but I've done several videos on that. But there's one in particular called How to Answer the Salary Question on a Job Application. Okay, that'll be, I think, what you need to answer this. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, there's more. There's more coming. I have two lists of chat, and I have one that's like in the video, and that kind of changes first, and then I've got the other one on, which is my actual official feed that's a lot bigger, and that comes 20 seconds later, something like that. Okay, what was I talking about? I was talking about recruiters. I was talking about how they answer questions and the criteria that they use to assess people. And yeah, somebody mentioned being likable. I mean, that is the same thing in the job interviews. They will hire the most likable candidate. Usually the way it goes is that you get a bunch of applications, and let's say out of all the applications that they received, they take, say, the top, 10 of people that look like they're technically qualified. Okay, there's no real danger that these people are not technically qualified to do the job. Okay, usually this is the way it goes. Okay, and then they contact those 10 candidates and say, like, let's come in for an interview. Okay, so before they even start the interviews, whoever they pick, they're pretty much, unless anything changes, unless something that somebody turned out to have said on their application was a lie or something, pretty much every one of those people will be able to do the job. So that's already been determined. The only thing that they do now to sort of choose between the 10 is things like who they like the most. That's kind of the biggest factor a lot of times. Especially if there's a hiring manager involved. Okay. If you're dealing with a recruiter, this still applies, but it's not quite as important. But if you're dealing with a hiring manager, this is the person that they're going to be the boss of whoever candidate they hire, right? So, especially with them, they're going to hire the person they like the most. People don't realize that that's actually what's going on a lot of the times. It is. It's a big part of it. It shouldn't be, but it is. And a lot of times people won't mention this. They won't explicitly state this in any way. It's just kept on the down low. But that's what's actually going on. I like this candidate, so I want to hire them. Now, once the hiring manager says that, there's a few mechanical checks that they have to do. They have to make sure that, they check references and things like this. They just make sure they get all their ducks in order. So that if ever it turns out that was the wrong choice, that person turns out to be an axe murderer or, a fraudster, or, they turn out to be a escaped mental patient, like whatever, is that, you can say, well, look, we did check, right? But assuming there's no red flags there, that's usually how they select somebody. It's stupid. Reading some comments, this is all from MA. So MA says, a recruiter once advised that if an interviewer asks about salaries in the interview, one should politely say, I hope it is okay, but I've been advised by blah, blah, blah to leave salary discussions to them. Someone's going to discuss salary for you? I don't understand that. You should be able, if someone said that to me, that would be strange. It's like, why can't you tell me about how much money you want? Is it okay to leave salary discussions to a personal recruiter to negotiate on one's behalf? Usually we don't see that. You're talking about a recruiter who's working for you. That's very rare, at least in my experience. Usually, 99.9% of the time, at least in the world I'm aware of, recruiters work for the organization. They don't work for you. They don't have your interests at heart. They have the company's interests at heart, not yours. Okay? They are your negotiation adversary. Okay? They are not your friend despite whatever they say. Okay? Now, if you have some kind of agent acting on your behalf, maybe they're paid by you to, find them a job or something, or get them the best deal possible. Or maybe it's part of a placement program. A lot of larger organizations will have those, where if they're going to lay off a bunch of people, they say, they have like, one of our benefits is we have like a headhunter that will help find you another job. Yeah, I haven't found those to be particularly effective, because the company doesn't care about finding you another job. It doesn't care about you. The point is they're laying you off. They've stopped caring about you. So anyway, if you have an agent acting on your behalf, then I guess you do what your agent says. But no, I would not recommend that. If someone asks you, how much money do you need? You should be able to answer that. And if you can't answer it, or you refuse to answer it, that's going to be seen as a red flag. That's going to be seen as this person is needlessly troublesome. Like, I'm just asking a direct question. What would you like? Like, if someone says, what's your favorite color? And the other person says, well, I'm going to let my lawyer get back to you on that one. That's kind of a red flag. It's like, what's the problem? What's going on here? Why can't you simply answer that question? It's a pretty benign question. I'm asking you what your preference is. What's the issue? So, yeah, that's kind of a big part of it. Okay. The bottom line is, like I said in those videos on salary, the bottom line is up until the point where they offer you a job, okay, they give you an offer letter of some kind, okay, any discussion of salary is used as a filter to filter out candidates, okay? Because recruiters, generally speaking, obey the same rules that everyone else does in business. If you can accomplish your goal but come in under budget, you look like a hero. If you accomplish your goal but you come in over budget, you've paid more than you were expecting to accomplish the goal, you look like you're incompetent. You look like a failure. Okay? So recruiter's job is to find candidates that, can fill a position. And as much as you can, you try and forecast how much it's going to cost you for that candidate. But a recruiter that comes back and says, look, I got this fully qualified candidate that we've determined we can retain and they will do a great job. And you like them. And I got them for less than the maximum salary. I got them for the minimum salary. They look like a hero. Okay, so for that reason, they're going to, if they need a reason to eliminate several candidates from the running because they all look pretty good, they're going to go to the salary question. They're going to use that as a tool to just arbitrarily eliminate you if you ask for too much money. That's the reason they're asking it, okay? If they've given you an offer letter, so there's no other candidates here, they're coming to you and they talk about salary, that's the time when they're wanting to actually talk about salary and, come to some agreement as to how much to pay you. Okay? So that's what's going on there. John Doe says, can you talk about why job hopping, or as I call it, job upgrading, is a great idea and why company loyalty is dead? Dead and so 20th century. Oh, it's so 20th century. Yeah. Actually, that kind of never was. That's like 19th century, John Doe. And even then, it was a problem. Where I am in Manitoba, Canada, we had a general strike in the year 1919, and it was a different time back then. All the railroad workers went on strike, and then the government just sent in the army to shoot a few of them, get the rest of them back to work. That's how like labor relations, 1920. This is a 19th century mentality. Okay. But no, 20th century people didn't have the loyalty. Now, as for job hopping, that's going to depend. Some people can do job hopping and it's a way to, it's like a shortcut to get promoted. Okay. If you're in a thriving industry, the industry is booming. Okay. Instead of waiting for your boss to retire for you to move into their position or something like that, if the industry is booming, if the industry is growing, then instead of like you waiting it out, you just get another job at a competitor where they're looking for someone in the boss position. Okay. And because the industry is growing, there won't be an overabundance of candidates that have been a boss for 20 years and so they have the experience, right? So if that's the industry, okay, and your skills are recognized, then it's a good idea. But it's not a magic ticket to climbing the ladder. You can get other jobs, but in terms of like using it as a shortcut to really leverage your way up and climb to the top of the tree, that's not necessarily the way to do it. It can be. So you got to pick your situation. Someone says, how can managers ask for a hike for themselves when they say new incoming members are increasingly getting hired on much higher bases? How can managers ask for a hike for themselves when they say new incoming members are? Well, look, if this is a larger organization, the way it's supposed to work is that, generally speaking, there's a rule that every sort of salary grade on the organizational chart, they are paid less than the person on the rung just above them, right? So there shouldn't be a situation where, like, if the workers get like a pay rise, they would be making more than their boss, right? I mean, that's kind of the thing. That's also one of the issues with CEO pay. Everybody argues about CEO pay. I'm not taking a side on this. I'm just saying, like, CEO pay, one of the things is the amount of money the CEO gets paid also sets the limits for all the other grades in the organization down to the worker level, right? So the way it should work is that everybody roughly goes up at the same time, right? So like every grade goes like that. So that's how it should be working. Now, if that's not how it's working, and you have to sort of go talk to your boss or go talk to the HR department or something, I mean, you can use that as the primary reason, right? And say like, look, not only am I supervising workers and I know their entire job, but I also have responsibility for this. I also have to have these additional skills. So therefore, I mean, it seems only reasonable that I should get paid more money. That's what's fair, and if that's not going to be the case, a lot of people, including myself, are not really going to feel that it's fair. So that's probably your most compelling argument, that it may not be possible to do if the business is sort of going through a rough patch, but that would beg the question, why are workers getting paid more? Managers, business owners, they don't pay out money based on fairness or what people deserve. They pay out money when they have to and they have no other choice, right? That helps explain a lot of those decisions. Okay, I know that's pretty general, but please, how often does your live streams premiere? Oh, I don't know, because I've only done 3 premieres in my life, and this is the first live stream I've done recently. So this is very much a work in progress. Hello from Poland. Adriana says, hello from Poland. I've learned so much from this channel. Thank you. You're most welcome, Adriana. I try and do my best. Helen says, hi, hope you're doing well. Helen says, starting with a new position on Wednesday. Do you have any advice for me? I did a video on that. I can't remember what it's called, but basically just be super agreeable. Okay. And what's a good thing to do is, depending on how hands-on they are, like in training you, or hands-off they might be, go to your boss on a sort of regular basis. Don't be a nuisance, but on a regular basis, I'd say once a week. If they have an office, go into their office, close the door, and just say, so how am I doing? Do you have any recommendations? Is there something that I'm doing that you think should be done better, and I should focus on that? And just check in with them. Okay. Number 1, that'll endear you to them. Number 2, it'll signal that you care. Okay. And number 3, your performance will go up. Okay. You won't go weeks or months doing something bad that you don't realize is bad and they haven't told you. And then they tell you after you've been doing it wrong for a long time and it becomes a big issue. So that's the number 1 thing I would recommend. Just be friendly and just try and, I know this sounds so fake, and it kind of is, but if the person you report to, you should do everything in your power to have a good relationship with them, to try and be like them as much as possible. So if they have a certain work style or a certain communication style, try and replicate that as much as you can. I'm not saying like totally be fake, but just sort of adapt yourself to that, kind of echo a lot of what you see and hear in terms of how they talk to you and, the way they do things. Okay. A lot of times people come from having a job in company A, and then they get a job at company B, and they start their job at company B as if they were working back in company A. And unbeknownst to them, that might be a complete culture shock. Everybody else at company B is thinking like, this person just doesn't get it. So be open to doing things differently, doing things the way they do it at company B. Okay, so that would be kind of something I would say. But great question. That's from Helen. Helen I, or Helen 1. Helen the first. Queen Helen I. Yeah. So I was starting to get on a roll, and then I started answering questions, but we could just do this. That's fine. Because I forgot what I was talking about in, just trying to retain that air of professionalism wherever I go. We need cooperatives, companies owned and run by employees. There's definitely a place for that. I don't think that you could do that. You could do that everywhere. But there's definitely a place for that. I think we need a little more of those. But what I think is good is companies that just improve their employee relations. It's like people that know how to deal with it. I don't know about you guys. I've spent a lot of my life in organizations where people just don't know how to interact with other people. I've seen workers at the lower level that are just antisocial. They are extremely disgruntled. They have no communication skills and no desire to have good communication skills. And then also I've seen people at the top that needlessly oppress people. They're horrible at communicating. And they have something that my father calls little Hitler syndrome. It's like, I'm the boss. I'm your superior. I'm going to make you feel that I'm your boss, just for no other reason than to stroke my own ego. I'm not going to communicate with you because I don't have to. I'm not going to explain anything to you because I don't have to. I'm not going to be polite to you because I don't have to. And to show that I'm the boss, I'm going to do all of those things just so it's painfully obvious. And that's going to make me feel important. There's too many people like that in a lot of organizations. And so when someone says we need more cooperatives, one thing that I've noticed about cooperatives is that, number one, the culture is totally different. People actually treat other people like human beings. That's the first kind of thing. There's a local big charity here in my home city, and I had the CEO of the charity. I had a meeting with her, and incidentally, she's the nicest person I've met in my entire life. Like such charisma. It's I can see why she's the head of a big charity. It's they got the right person there. But she gave me a tour of the entire thing, and you've got all these people in there that are working for very little money. Some are working for free, and some are working for a pittance. And they're more dedicated to their job, and they're working harder than a lot of people that I've seen making $100,000 a year. A lot of workers. And I know a lot of business owners, mid-level managers, executives that would love to have those employees. But instead of having that employee who's that dedicated working for free, they've got somebody who's disgruntled, who's just phoning it in, and they're paying them $100,000 a year to do that. It really makes a huge difference when you have great employee relations. When people, first of all, they believe they're on a mission, they believe in the organization and what it does, in this case, a charity. Obviously, they're not being compensated with money, they're being compensated with other things, having your life have a meaning, giving back, seeing people's gratitude to the help that you're offering them, stuff like this. And they're treated really well. They're treated like human beings. That's the thing. People really misunderstand that. John Doe says, I just quit a job because of a little Napoleon. Yeah, I can believe it. That's the number one reason why people quit. Think about it. You could be paying somebody a lot of money. You could be paying them a small fortune. And not only does their performance go downhill, but then they eventually leave because of things like, my boss didn't say hi to me in the morning. When my boss gave me my task, they used a rude tone. They didn't give me enough time to do this job. When they said they would get back to me, they never got back to me. It's stupid crap like this. That's why people leave. I mean, we have data on this. That's the number one reason. It's their relationships with others, particularly their boss. And yet at the same time, it's interesting. At the same time, there's a lot of people out there that say, like, you know, you don't need to study management to run a business. Yeah. In the same way, you don't need to learn a musical instrument to be in a band and be a rock star. That has been known. Or you don't need to go to drama school to be an actor. You know, it's true. But drama school helps. You know, learning business helps. Learning how to manage people helps. You know, and that mentality trickles down to the HR department. People that have absolutely no idea how to hold a conversation with somebody. People that are just not personable at all, but who think they are. People that have never done an actual job in their lives, but feel that they can decide whether you're a good person for that job or not. That's what we have. Just saying. I like that people are commenting. This is great. I didn't know if anyone would show up. It's the equivalent of 4 a.m. for me. I'm a night owl. But this is great. People are showing up. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Now, someone says, wouldn't it be better, Zach? This is Zach. Now, Zach says, wouldn't it be better to do everything on your main channel for more engagement? Yes, it would, if this wasn't an experiment. This is an experiment. And I figured this would be... The way things usually go is the first few times you do something, it's horrible. And then maybe, if you're lucky, after a certain amount of time, it gets halfway decent. So I didn't want to do a live stream on my main channel. Besides, I heard from other YouTubers that, I don't know, it's something to do with the YouTube's algorithm. They claim they want you to stream, and then when you stream, they stop promoting your channel. So that's what I've heard. Could be false, but why risk it? We'll try this out. John Doe says, it seems that the ultimate goal is self-employment to avoid all of this nonsense. You're absolutely correct. That's the opinion I share. That's why I do what I do. I mean, look, if you're in an organization where you work with some great people, and some organizations have that. In my experience, smaller organizations have that. And the economic reason behind that is that you do get economies of scale with larger organizations, so they can afford to pay more generally. Okay? Now, you got to ask yourself, why would somebody go work at a smaller company if they could go work at a larger company? Okay, let's say you're a welder or something, and you could work in a small shop that employs 10 people, or you could work for a multinational corporation that employs 75,000 people, right? As a welder, right? Now, the multinational corporation, they can pay you, say, 25% more. Why, if you're a good welder and you can pick and choose where you go, why would you work for the small company? Well, it's because a lot of times the small company, they treat you like a human being. Now, obviously, this varies widely, but that is a thing. Okay, and I've worked for small companies that do this, and they actually compete successfully against the large multinational corporation and win, because even though they're only a small operation, all their employees are engaged, all their employees love the company, all their employees like their boss, all the employees have a great relationship with the customers they have, et cetera, et cetera. And all the best welders end up going from the big company to the small company because they're tired of being treated in a bad way. A lot of organizations think that if I pay you money, I don't have to treat you well because I'm paying you money. I mean, this is false. We know this. This is like chapter 1, paragraph 1 of like management. But nobody wants to go to learn business these days. And they suffer. Yeah. Zach says your main channel is top quality, by the way. Thank you, Zach. I appreciate that. That's very nice of you. I was trying to do podcasts for a while. And, the Ultimate Job Search podcast, those haven't been super successful. It was an experiment. I also have one on this channel, which was another podcast, which was entrepreneurial type thing. But nobody watches those. It's very disappointing. Because somebody said it right. Was it Zach that said that right? Yes. It's the being your own boss is kind of the culmination of the whole getting hired thing, right? Like if, for a lot of people, that is the end result. Okay. You work at a place, you work in an industry for your life, a lot of your career. You've seen it all. You know every trick. And then a lot of times an option is then to just go out on your own. You know the inside information for multiple companies in that business. You know a lot of the customers. You know a lot of the work that gets done. You know exactly what they do, and you know exactly how to set it up from the ground up. You can do that. And also in this day and age, there's never been a better time to start a business. I mean, even with like what we were talking about before, somebody was asking about a YouTube channel. I mean, even that's a business, How to impress a new boss. If he is from a different culture? Well, you got to get to know the culture that he's from. How do you do that? You spend time with him or her or them. The best thing to get to know someone, I know this is not possible for everyone to do, but the best way to get to know someone, even someone that you don't really get along with that well, is to go for lunch with them. It's away from work, and you're in a restaurant or something and you're waiting for your food and you're talking. You have to find things that you agree, some neutral thing to talk about. Maybe it's sports, maybe it's hobbies, maybe it's larger sort of topics. And then you find that it's like you have similar opinions on different things, and you come closer over that. Okay, but whether you can do that or not, maybe that's not possible, but just talking to them, communicate with them. That's the blanket solution for a lot of personal issues, is communication. Okay. Zach says, the nature of economies is that things always revert to consolidation due to competition. Hence why cooperatives would be a net benefit for society. Well, yes, that's true. That is a trend. That is a general trend where industries become more consolidated. Okay. But there are forces opposing that. There are new businesses that come in and start all over. New business models. We're talking on YouTube. YouTube's an example of something that just came in. Like, you could talk about how network television has through a series of mergers and acquisitions has become more concentrated, right? In the past, there might have been 1,000 TV companies, and now there's only 4, or something like that. But then you get YouTube popping up, you get other things popping up, video games, right? So although that is a general trend, the world hasn't sort of tended to concentrate towards one company. So it depends what we're talking about. The other thing is that large companies tend to fail at new things. That's also I know I'm going to get a lot of flack from this, but in the 90s and in the 2000s, I was a huge fan of Microsoft. I thought that company was great. And they were for a while. But one thing that was funny was that, and this was kind of a joke, is that they'd buy up a lot of startups, right? Startups that were able to do something that Microsoft wasn't able to do. Microsoft had the richest guy in the world at that time, right? And they had billions and billions of dollars. They had tons of cash. They didn't know what to do with it all. But yet, a little company with $500,000 total can do something that Microsoft couldn't, So Microsoft would buy them all up and still not manage to do anything. And I think that's a trend that they've continued to this day. I'm a Windows Phone user. I know. Don't even start. But it was Nokia. Nokia did a lot of stuff, and then Microsoft bought them, and it just killed it. The only reason I still use this camera is because it's got a 41 megapixel camera on it. It's 10 years old, and it's got a 41 megapixel camera. Anyway. Okay, so Zach is saying, except for capitalists who would lose money and power, which is why it hasn't happened. Well, no, I think that capitalists will always make money. They'll always find a way of making money. I mean, you don't have to take my word for it. Look at the average wealth of the 1% in the United States. I'm not in the United States, but it just keeps going up and up and up and up and up. I mean, they're finding ways to make money. That's not anything new. I turned my toxic boss's hatred of me into love by listening and making her feel listened to. That's good. Excellent advice. That might help. Was it Zach that was wondering about that? Or someone was wondering about that? Who we got now? Decker Expat, if I'm saying that right. Do you have any advice for a single book for someone curious about management but not sure to invest in your MBA? Okay. Well, my MBA is $100. I know that's a pretty, well, depends where you are. That can be a pretty prohibitive sum depending on where you are. One book. Well, I would say go to, if you have a university, like a old school university, like brick and mortar university that's well regarded in your region, in your hometown, or you could go online to universities around the world like Harvard, Yale, whatever the gold standard is for business. And what they used to do, a lot of them still do, is you can see what textbooks they're using in their business program. And if it's an MBA, the MBA is the gold standard for how to learn business. They usually have some kind of like first course, introduction course, intro to management or something like that. Find out what textbook they're using and order that off Amazon. Okay, that's what I would recommend. Okay. Failing that, if you just want to get further in life and you want one book, get How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I did a video. It's like one of my first videos on my YouTube channel. It was kind of a 3-minute review of that book. So yeah, that would be my recommendation. YouTube is owned by Alphabet, another monopoly. Yeah. Until the next kid in the garage puts them out of business. And people laugh. I'm sure a lot of people are laughing when they hear me say this. But, YouTube now, like Alphabet now, is what Microsoft was in the 90s. No one could imagine them going out of business or even having a rival. It was that mentality. They were just so huge. They'd been huge. They were just going up and up and up and up. There was no stopping them. The thought that someone could just come up from nowhere and put them out of business, that was unthinkable. It was so unthinkable that they lost an antitrust trial back in, was it the year 2000? Because the judge basically decided, no, you're a monopoly. There's no way to challenge you. Now, what's ironic is immediately after that antitrust trial, Microsoft's fortunes went like this, and then Google went like that, right? So, you say it can't happen. It can happen. There's nothing physically preventing anyone from doing that. And that's all that matters. Maybe it'll be India. Maybe it'll be China. No empire lasts forever. Yeah, exactly. John Doe is right on that one. But good points, big corporations tend to stagnate. Yeah, well, they do. You know why they tend to stagnate, in my opinion, based on my experience, is because they're filled with people that have never been entrepreneurs. The people that don't really understand business. They think they do, but they don't. To them, business is wearing a suit, having a fancy office, and telling people what to do. That's what they think business is. It's not. Business is making money. Business is successfully delivering value to a customer. And that's one of the reasons I like YouTube, because in order to at least my impression, is that in order to be successful on YouTube, you have to figure out how to deliver value to viewers. You know, and you will be rewarded for that. If you get viewers, you are rewarded. You get views. They promote you more. Right? It's not quite like the business out in the wild, because there's this big thing standing between you and your customers, which is the YouTube algorithm. So it is a slightly artificial thing, but it basically follows the same principles. Like, for example, in the real world, it's not quite the same thing. You can't really get blacklisted like you can on YouTube. You know, there's no one party saying, I mean, there could be the government, but you'd have to screw up pretty badly for the government to sort of step in and quash your business, you know, depending where you are in the world. I mean, there's always exceptions. Decker Expat says it was more about investing time than money. Yeah. Okay, we got Sakin Goel, if I'm saying that right. I'm sure I'm not. I apologize. I'm terrible with names. I have mispronounced some pretty high-level names in my time to the person's face. And, you know, being completely oblivious to it at the time was then embarrassed later. I've done it all. I'm terrible at names. I admit that. Do you have any recommendation on a good marketing book? By the way, your demeanor is so analytical yet relaxed. Thanks for spending time with us. Not a problem. My pleasure. I'm just flattered that you guys are here listening to me, you know, just waffle on about everything and nothing. A marketing book. Well, I don't want to give away the marketing book I recommend in my MBA course, but like I said, same thing. Go to your local university, go to their website, look at the business program, look at the MBA program, not the Bachelor of Business or the Certificate of Business, you know, programs, nothing like that. Look at the MBA program, okay? In the MBA program, they should have at least one marketing course, okay? Find out what textbook they recommend, order it from Amazon. Okay? Go to Harvard and do that. Go to Yale, go to the best universities in the world. Look at what they have posted. If they post their textbooks, a lot of them do, not all of them. And get the one you prefer, the one you can find. Just order it. What I recommend is you get it for... You don't get the latest edition. You get like 1 or 2 editions old. And then it's like literally $5 on Amazon. Okay, so look into that. That's what I would recommend. And then read it at your convenience. Like if I was going to give someone advice and say, what can you do to further your career? It would be number 1, work on your soft skills. Work on being likable. Work on good communication skills. I mean, even stupid stuff like work on how you dress, your grooming, you know? If you've got like all kinds of weird things going on with your hair and tattoos and body piercings and stuff, I mean, that might get in your way if you're trying to get a job that pays $100,000. It may, not always, but depending on what business you're in. But work on the soft skills and your sort of professional kind of demeanor. And then learn marketing. If you don't know marketing, if you don't come from sales or anything like that, learn marketing. And I mean, it's relevant to what we're talking about here because, you know, in a job interview, you're selling yourself, right? It's a sales pitch for yourself. That's what a job interview is. You know, so a lot of the principles about what to say in an interview or what to disclose, what not to disclose, it's very, very similar to what they teach people in sales. If you're making a presentation and you want to represent a product or, you know, or a company or whatever, it's exactly the same stuff, you know? So yeah, learn marketing. And that also then enables you to one day have your own business if that's something you're interested in. It gives you that extra option. Because having technical skills is the beginning. You know, I can make a device that here, I just made this device. It reads minds and it works, right? But if you don't know how to get the word out to people that would buy it, it serves no purpose. You make no money, right? If everybody that you encounter says, nah, you can't have built that, that's impossible, and then they leave, even though if they believed you, they would have spent $100,000 buying your device, right? You fail because you don't know how to present it. Zach says, why is the hiring process not evolved in all these decades? Instead of utilizing technology to identify the best candidates, they still just use outdated, superficial CV review methods. Because the real hiring happens in the hidden job market. It doesn't happen by asking somebody, so tell me about yourself. That's why, because this stuff doesn't matter. Listen, if you don't know, worker level jobs, a lot of them are posted. It's something like 50% are posted, okay? Supervisor jobs, the next level up, it's something like 40% are posted. Manager jobs, 30% or so. Executive jobs, something like 10 to 15% are posted. What about the other 90%? They're all filled through the hidden job market where you don't talk to a recruiter who asks you, so tell me about yourself. Why should we hire you? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? I mean, do you really think they hire a CEO like that? No, they don't. People that have millions of dollars of their own money, okay, and own businesses, they own department stores and they own, big businesses, and they need to hire a vice president in charge of marketing for their entire business. Do you really think that's how they qualify those people? No, it is not. That's why nobody is really focused on how to hire at a low level, because the reality is that that's not really how you assess somebody. And the reality is that they don't really care about who they get. They get a warm body into the job, I mean, that's another. Does that qualify as a truth bomb? I mean, it's something that people don't want to hear, but it's true. Like anyone will do, as long as, they don't leave and they can do the job halfway, like we say. That's all that matters, when it comes to a position that they really need to get the right person, they don't put them through the whole, tell me about yourself. They don't put them through that interview and then have them talk to a recruiter that knows nothing about the job that they're hiring for, right? So that's kind of what's going on. That's why it hasn't evolved. That's why nobody cares. This is all done at a low level and nobody really cares about that. This is why the way to fix being in job search hell, where you're trying to beat your head against the wall, getting hired by recruiters who ask you those dumb questions. This is why the solution is to go to the hidden job market. You stop looking, you stop answering job ads. I've done videos on this. I talk about it in my course. If you want to get the whole thing, I've laid it all out in my course. But that's where it's at. That's anybody changing careers will know what I'm talking about. Okay. Because think about it. How do they assess you, or they claim to assess you in a job interview? Recruiters look at things like years of experience, okay? And they're of the opinion that if you haven't done that exact thing before, how could you ever possibly know how to do it, right? That's a prevalent opinion, right, among recruiters, people who know nothing about the job. So if you want to, say you've had a career for 20 years as a welder and you want to get a job as a teacher or something, you don't respond to the job ad. The first thing they're going to do in standard channels, they're going to ask you, so how many years do you have experience teaching? And you have to say, well, I have none. And then they'll say, well, what makes you think you're qualified for this job? Right? Has anybody experienced that? That's why you talk to your friend who works at the school, who knows you, has known you for years, trusts you, knows that you're an upstanding person. And you say, look, I'd really like to teach. If there's ever an opening, let me know. And then you get put up for that job by your friend, and your friend vouches for you and says, no, I know this guy, he's good. And they trust him. So that trust extends to you. And that's usually why they'll hire you, because you got a personal recommendation from someone they trust, someone internal. That's a hidden job market. That's how these things work. It's not a posted job. You get in there before they post the job. John Doe says, I think the tale of Tesla versus Edison illustrates the importance of marketing, sales, and soft skills. Yeah. Well, Tesla was a genius. I mean, I'm an electrical I have a degree in electrical engineering. So Tesla is like my god, you know. He was a genius in the world of electricity and magnetism. He was a genius in the world of mechanical devices and mechanical engineering. So you marry those two together, you get the electric motor. You know, like a polymath, right? And yes, you're absolutely right what you're saying. I mean, Edison had his marketing together and he was very successful because of it. I mean, nobody's perfect. That's the thing. Everybody makes blunders. You know, everybody throughout history that's done something amazing has made blunders. And it's unfortunate when they remember you for the blunder and not the like 10 successes, you know. Edison gets a bad rap because even though he's done many things, people these days obsess about, you know, he abused Tesla and didn't befriend him as he should have done, right? It's funny, like Einstein is remembered for the good stuff he did. Nobody ever talks about how he spent the last 20 years of his life trying to disprove quantum mechanics or big parts of it. You know, it's kind of funny. Anyway, yes, most job ads are for entry-level jobs. Yes, that's why we see that. And when there's a job posting for an executive type job, usually, it's one of those cases where they have an internal candidate in mind, but they're just going through the motions so that publicly it appears that they're being impartial. I'm not saying that's always how it is, but that's often what's going on there. Farouk Hermans says, why are there often several rounds of interviews? Is the CV cover letter in the first interview not enough? No, it's because organizations are built on people that don't trust each other, people that are scared to do anything and take any decision because they could get blamed for it. So as a way to cover their ass, you get everyone else to okay your decision so that no one can make the decision solo. And that way they can't be blamed if anything goes wrong. So that's usually what's going on there. I mean, like everything that we've covered, there's always exceptions, but that's the general rule. Large organizations are based on taking initiative away from employees. They don't want people making decisions. They want every decision to be approved and verified, you know, multiple rounds because they don't trust their employees. That's usually what we see. Okay? Completely different dynamic than working in a smaller company. By the way, in my experience, I've worked for some blue chip companies and that's how they operate. They got entire departments of people that, you know, are highly talented, but nobody's allowed to make a decision on their own. They have to it all has to bottleneck through their boss. And that's why they do it in hiring, because they're scared to make a decision. If they select you and you quit like after 3 months or something, it's going to look bad on them. So the way the system is set up for them is it's a decision by committee and everyone has to sign off on it. And then in the end, the only person that's really responsible, technically, is the big boss. And he can't fire himself or herself. So that's why that's usually done that way. Yeah, you shouldn't need like 6 rounds of interviews, especially for a lower level jobs. It's silly. And if you go up for an organization that's making you go through 6 rounds of interviews, that's a signal that they operate this way. But they're probably big, which means that they can probably pay you a lot. So it might be worth sticking it out. You might go insane in your job if getting something done and doing some good is important to you, but they might pay you a lot of money. Now, I've been drinking Red Bull, as you can tell by how fast I've been talking. What does it say here? Zach, yeah, most jobs are. John Doe, the truth shall set us free no matter how uncomfortable. Yes, you're absolutely right. And let me tell you, there's a lot of uncomfortable truths here in the world of HR and recruiting and business in general. The great thing, by the way, if anybody's wondered, the great thing that I like to do on YouTube is that I'm not beholden to anyone. I have represented organizations for years. And even as being a teacher or being in a startup advisor and things like this, it's like, there's kind of a gag on what you can say. I have no such gag anymore. That's why I'm a former CEO. If I was ever to go back, I'd have to start talking corporate to you guys. And I don't think either of us would want that. Okay. Now, I'm sure I'm saying this wrong. I totally apologize, but Kasper Kunawal Schick? Kasper. I'm going to call you Kasper. I'm sure that's not your name, but it's good to see you. Hi, do you have any great and useful designation certificates in finance or investment management? You are awesome. Thank you. I've got an MBA focusing in finance for what that's worth. Yeah. That's been useful. I haven't worked in finance. I haven't worked at a bank or any kind of investment type thing other than my own personal finances, but it's useful for understanding that dimension to making decisions. Finance is about money in the future. It's all about making decisions. What should we do now that will, we try to predict the outcome. So, if you have option A, we could do this, option B or option C. Finance will tell you, okay, if we do option A, it's expected amount of money we'll make is X, but there's this much variance in how that could go. Option B, we expect to make this much, but there's this much variance, and so on. And it helps you understand that element. So it's very useful in making business decisions, but I don't use it for pure finance. I don't give stock tips. I never have, and I never will. So Fruk Herman says, so if an advert lists the various rounds, there may be a trust issue. Well, it's not a trust issue. It's the culture of the organization. It would be probably a very large formal organization. Okay, they have lots of process and it's very formalized. And people are, the expression is process focused rather than results focused. So you care more about doing your job rather than if it worked or not, An organization that puts everything in email, every single thing that they do, every communication is always on email. Everything that they can't just call you on the phone and tell you what they're going to do. They have to send it to you in an email. That's so they can document it. Why do they want to document it? Because someone might come back to them and say, you didn't do this. And they can always pull out the email and say, yes, I did. See, right here. Now, do you call that paranoid? No, but you could call it job security, but that's their main focus. I say that job ad that you described signals an organization that's large and thinks like that. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just that's what it's giving away. Zach, okay, talking to somebody. Fruk Herman says, would an open application avoid going into multiple interview rounds? Not necessarily. Once again, it depends, but I don't think so. I don't think that has too much of a bearing on it. Are you talking about just sending in your resume saying, please consider me for any job? Is that what you're saying? If they have a process, if HR has an official process, for example, 3 rounds of interviews, I don't think the way you apply, if you go to them, the way you apply for it, that's not going to influence what their process is for you. The only alternative would be, when I say hidden job market, I'm talking about when you go in to a hiring manager and there's a personal connection. You make a personal connection with people in many, many companies, and then you follow those up to see if they're looking. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. That may influence not their process, but it influences the outcome of the process because you're going in with that personal recommendation. Yes, Zach says open and speculative applications are barely looked at. Yeah, unfortunately, the world that we live in, there's more applicants than there is positions. So in that case, they know that if they post a job, they're going to get a whole ton of applicants. So for that reason, they're usually not looking at just general applicants that send in a resume. And besides, that goes against the principle of, you want to tailor your resume or your application to the specific job that you're going for. If somebody sends in and says, I'm qualified for everything or many, many things, that's a red flag. They regard that as a red flag. You might well be qualified to do all those different jobs, but they will interpret it as a red flag, whether or not it's true. What else can be read in between the lines of a job advert? Well, one thing is that when they give lots of requirements and they say they're required, they're essential, a lot of the times they aren't. So if you don't fit everything, it's not a deal breaker. That's another thing. You have to take that with a grain of salt. Usually what happens is the recruiter goes to the hiring manager and says, look, I got to create a job posting for this job that you want me to hire for. What are the requirements? And then the hiring manager says, oh, geez, I haven't thought about this yet. I don't know. I guess this, that. That'll be nice. That'll be good. And there you go. Post that, right? That's what usually happens. So sometimes those aren't really deal breakers if you don't have them. It's very helpful. Thanks for waking up early and doing this, Bill, from a fellow Winnipegger. Oh, John Doe from Winnipeg. That's awesome. Well, we Winnipeggers have to stick together. We've got the most awesome weather of any city in North America. And everybody thinks I'm joking. We have the most days of sunshine of any city in North America throughout the year. So now you know. Come to sunny Winnipeg. And what is it? We live in igloos and drive dog sleds to work, I think is how that goes. That's true. I can vouch for that. I'm coming to you live from my igloo right now. Yeah, so if anyone's interested, I was going to say this at some point. Holy crap. Thank you, City. That is my very first super chat. So thank you very much for 400. I don't even know I'm terrible with currency. You'd think a finance person would know the currencies around the world. I don't. But thank you very much. It's going to convert automatically. So that's awesome. No, I was going to just remind everyone, I have an MBA course. Not everybody's aware of that. So for $100, you get all the books that you would get in you get a list of the books that I recommend, and then I walk you through them. So you got to pay for books, but you can get them whichever way you want. You can get older versions, very little money. And if you read them at your convenience, you get essentially an MBA. It's not officially recognized. It's not an official accredited MBA, but you learn the material, you learn the knowledge, so that if you ever want to do YouTube, you ever want to do a business venture, you work in a business, it'll help you improve at your job, whatever it is. If that's of any interest to you, check out that course. There's a link in the description, or at least there will be. There's a link in the description of all my videos where this is kind of at the top. Yeah, thank you, City. You have a great day too. Thank you for the super chat. So I'll maybe do another 5 minutes, and then that'll probably be good. So if anyone has any last questions, just send those in. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Coming back to the theme of this, it's it's so stupid that to be qualified for a job is not enough. You also then have to go through this business where you've got to learn how to pass an interview, which is something completely different to being qualified for a job. It's stupid. Or learning about the hidden job market. It took me 20 years to learn that. And the comment that I was going to say earlier, the comment that somebody made, I did a video, what was it, 2 weeks ago, that was called, what they think of you. And somebody wrote the most eloquent comment that I thought just hit the nail right on the head. They said, something to do with, you just bitch slapped the entire HR profession. I thought that was wonderful. That wasn't my intention. I mean, there are some people who work in HR that actually know what they're doing. The problem is that you encounter those people at a higher level. They're not recruiting for worker jobs. They might not be recruiting for supervisor jobs. They're working starting at the manager level, where you see people that actually can assess your abilities accurately. They do exist. It isn't a fable, but they're few and far between. And for every one of those, you've got like 50 people that are just incompetent. They're just rude. I mean, you can see how their social skills are just lacking when you walk in there and already they're disingenuous. They're off-putting. They do nothing to make you feel welcome and put you at ease. It's quite the opposite. It just makes the whole situation more tense. And sometimes you get a feeling like, I don't want to work here if I have to deal with people like you. It's terrible. Please, okay, so MA says, please, how does one, I guess, answer one's greatest achievement interview question? Does one just select a random achievement? No. Well, you could do that. It wouldn't be awful. If you were hiring for like a minimum wage job, in order to pass the question, you would just have to say something coherent that was an achievement of yours. Okay. But if you're at a higher level, if you're dealing with a recruiter, if it were me, I would always come back to the requirements for the job, the things that they posted that they said they're looking for. Okay. So if you have anything in your past where you've done any one of those, okay, like take one of the first, maybe 2 or 3 things that they listed in that list of requirements. Presumably the important stuff is towards the beginning, right? Take one of those and think of an example from your past where you've demonstrated that. So if they're looking for a great communicator, like that's number 1 on their list of requirements, and they ask you, what's your greatest achievement? You could say, well, here's something. Last year or whatever, I diffused this really bad conflict that our number 1 customer had with, our company by smoothing over everything, by like listening to their complaints. And, you tell a story, this is what I did. This is what the issue was. This is how I handled it. This was the result. They were so impressed by that they gave us another contract, or they bought another round of products or whatever. I got recognized for it. And that's how I deal with all these type of situations, now and, from now into the future because of that one achievement. That's probably the thing that earned me the most recognition at my last job, something like that, and it happens to be the thing that they're looking for. So you're giving them exactly what they want to hear. You're not just saying something random. Well, I once drank 45 beers and didn't pass out. It's like, I consider that my greatest achievement. I mean, that might be an achievement to you, but to them, it's like, oh, we don't care about that. And in fact, that might be a little weird. So that's how I would answer that. What's the harshest truth a young professional must know? Ooh. The harshest truth a young professional must know. Probably that you're being exploited. That if you took the amount of money that the organization makes, or if it's like a government organization, the amount that they're given, their budget, and you divide it by the number of people in the organization. So it's like, gross revenue per employee or something like that. It'll come up to a certain number, right? $150,000. I know not everybody uses dollars, but I'm just whatever number. And then look at how much they're paying you. Okay, you're making a fraction of that. Where's the rest going? It's money that you're making that it's going to the owners. And to a slightly smaller degree, some of the higher level managers, if they're not one and the same. Now, if you were to do the same work you're doing on your own, if there was a way to make that work, okay? If you were to go into business for yourself, you wouldn't make quite as much, but you'd be able to keep 100% of it. And in some businesses, that's all important. That shows you the potential you have. That's the potential you have right now, forgetting about potential you might have in the future after you've tacked on even more skills and experience. So if you're working in a low-paying job, that might be eye-opening. And that would be a harsh truth. Another one would be companies just don't care about you at all. Maybe your boss might care about you, like the people you actually work with. They may care about you on a personal level, but company doesn't. Company doesn't even care about the CEO. It's true. I'm deadly serious. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up pretty soon, but John Doe says, thank you, Sensei. Thank you. What's the opposite of Sensei? Is it Kohai? Like the pupil? Not to sound grandiose and arrogant, but no, thank you guys for the questions. I even got a super chat. First super chat of my life. So thank you very much. That is huge. And this week, I'm going to take this stream and I'm going to put this as a video, at least that's my intention, on my channel for Tuesday. And then I'm going to do another one of these for Thursday. This is kind of an off week for me. I won't have a regular video. I'll just have these 2 live streams. So I will do another one of these in a couple of days. But thank you very much for being here. You guys are awesome. I wish you all the luck in the world with your career and with your job search and all that kind of stuff. If you have to deal with a lot of rude, unprofessional people that make you want to weep for the human race, I understand completely. You are not alone, and there are solutions to this and ways of never having to deal with these people ever again. So there's good news. Don't do anything you're going to regret later. There's light at the end of the tunnel. I'm going to read one more and then that's it. So MA says, I noticed that in interviews, I may not have even answered the question asked before the interviewer deviates and asks follow-up questions. Do I still have to try to answer the first question? Well, it's going to vary for the person, but I would say if you can answer it in a sentence, yes. Don't backtrack and start going down a whole story of what they asked 2 minutes ago. Just, say like, well, in a sentence, yes, I did. And now I'm going to answer your current question, that kind of thing. Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. Remember, if you're at an impasse, I do have a course called Get Hired. It contains everything, not just in bite-sized videos, but like sort of the whole shebang-a-bang, the full enchilada. If that's any use to you, check that out. I also have another course called the $100 MBA. Check that out if you're interested in learning business. And other than that, you guys have been great. I will see you in a couple of days on another one of these live streams. Thanks. Take care.